Hi guys, welcome back to Jin's Treasure. Today we're going to do another tutorial for the odd shaped stones. I picked out this beautiful tiger eye. Such an awkward shape. How are we going to do this? Let's find out. So if you see my videos, you know I do copper wire. I work with the 20 gauge and, well, it's on the other side, but got the 24 gauge right there as well. And so just going off of the size and shape of the stone, generally I like to do about there is gonna be like a little bit over twice. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Jesus. Oh my God. Well, I'm gonna keep going, okay? So this wire is a little bit over twice the circumference of the stone, and then with the 24 gauge wire, I just unwound it, and it's gonna be basically from the tip of my middle finger in length all the way to the center of my chest. And this specific wire that I pulled is actually going to be slightly larger, and that's okay. Any excess I would just clip off. And what I'm doing here is just kind of eyeballing the middle for the 20 gauge wire, and then as well to get the middle for the 24 gauge, I took the two tips, kissed them together, slide all the way to find the middle there, and that's where I will begin the wrap. And then slowly just stand down. Okay, readjusted. So in the beginning, you just want to go slow. Make sure that you get the bands. Get the focus on the camera. Get the bands nice and tight. And in fact, let me just show you real quick. So because this wire is so long, it actually gets in my way. So to make that easier for me, what I do is just coil it around my fingers and then switch over to the other side and do the same thing, coiling it. And that shortens the length of the 24 gauge wire, makes it easier to work with when you're doing the actual wrapping. So here you can see I started, this was the middle one here, and then clearly spaced, and then after that first wrap, then it gets easier to wrap them tightly. What I'm going to do is with my middle finger, my index finger and my thumb on both sides, I pinch down on the 20 gauge wire and then push and slide, and that tightens up those wires. Now it all looks nice and neat. And then since I started on this side, I'm gonna switch over Start wrapping this side. And what I like to do with this finger here is like, so I pull this tight, and then here is with my pointing finger. It's just kind of like the guide to keep the bands neat and organized and tight. And you just want to go slow, have patience. Do, what is that, like, I don't know, 20 bands? After 20 bands, with this specific shape, because it's triangular, and what I want to do is have the point at the bottom, I don't have to do as many bands. I will do a few more. On each side, but really don't have to do a lot. You want to do more when it's more of a rounded tip. So if I were to do this, where the angle is more wide, then I would want to be doing more wraps. But since we're just going to use the tip here, what I'm going to do is just, again, eyeball just the middle there, bend it up, kind of shape it in the shape of the stone. And then here what I'm going to do is just a little trick I picked up. Bend that out and bend that out. Call that like the longhorn technique. And what that does is it gives me room for when I'm wrapping around, instead of the wires bending in and curving and making it like a narrow passage that's open wide for me. All right, and then what I'm doing here is just kind of framing, and then I can set the stone down there. Pinch this a little bit more so it has more of that shape. And then what I'm gonna do is next is swing the wires around, and then also just kind of estimating on the bulge. See how it's not necessarily a flat stone, more like a pyramid. So factoring in the bulge here is where I get the idea for how much I need to create like a space gap when I'm wrapping. And since it's the first one, the bulge is not going to be that big, so I'm just going to, with my thumbnail, just like that, right? And so there's also a little bit of bend in the wire aside from that gap, and that's going to give me plenty of room to work with. And then from there, just do a few quick wraps, and then we're ready to flip over to the other side. I'll put the stone in there one more time just to double check and make sure, like, yep, that feels good on the back side. Plenty of space. And so with this side, because the bulge, it's only on one side, and then on the other side, it's flat. So I won't need to do quite as much of a gap. Maybe just a little bit of wiggle room there. Right, and then boom, same thing, just a few wraps until we're ready to switch back onto the other side once again. And what I like to do is I like to do 2 quick ones in the beginning, and then once the stone is more in the middle, then I can work my way up for a greater length before I'm ready to switch back over a third time. And then I'll swing that one over just to get it out of the way. And see how I'm holding with my thumb, my middle finger in the back, holding the back of the stone, and then my top finger, my pointer, holding the top of the stone. And it's tricky finger work at first. It will feel really awkward, but then as you become a more experienced rapper, it actually becomes more natural to hold your fingers in this awkward way. As you can see, with my fingers holding the stone in place, I don't have to do a space gap because it would just come across naturally, and I want to actually keep it tight as possible. All right, and then, so I did a few there, and then I'll switch to the back side. And what I'm expecting here is that once I get this one across, the stone is going to start to feel a lot more secure. And I don't have to work my fingers so much. And in the beginning, it might even feel like your fingers are cramping a little bit. And once you go further up, you feel less of that cramp. All right, and then from there, I can take the stone out so it's not in the way, and I can do some quick bands wrapped, kind of rapid fire, rather than keeping the stone in place and trying to work around them. And then here, I'll show you real quick. I was going a little bit too fast, and what ended up happening is that the wire, it actually went backwards. So I caught it, and what I did is just unwrap it a little bit and then realign it. And then this is also a big reason for why I like to wrap this way with the finger here, is keeping it wedged in there keeps it tight and kind of prevents the winding backwards from happening. And then so, there it is again. So real quick, just pull up on the wire. Boom. Like it never happened. All right, and then so this is getting pretty long. And I think what I'll do is just switch over to the other side and do the same thing. Just working, kind of lining it up so it's more symmetric to this. So I'm aiming for like about there's where I want to wrap to. This song stuck in my head. I'm trying to remember. It's one of those 80s pop songs. Not pop, but 80s electronic, actually. What's that guy's name? Egypt. Egyptian Lover. He's got that one song, though. It's super popular on social media right now. It's like the, 80s pop and lock song that you see on all those shorts videos. That's the one that's stuck in my head. I don't know the name of it. Anyway, so here we are back at the top now. And my goal will be to do 2 more going across. And see, so this one is actually a little bit too tight. And so what ended up happening is, you can see it came off the frame a little bit. And I'm gonna actually, rather than correct that, I'm just gonna keep it as is and just work it as best as possible. Because if I end up unwrapping this to give this more length, because this is already wrapped tight, it will warp and bend the wire. It won't look as smooth when I'm finished. It's not gonna look as high quality. And then carefully, boom. Now we got the back side. And man, so this is a really nice piece of tiger eye that that I actually got in like this really nice pack of like 30 stones for 20 bucks. It was an incredible deal. And I took a gamble on that because it's really not all Tiger Eye is as good as quality as this. Like you can see that metallic band right there. That's the hematite band, and it's just, oh, it's so juicy. And then you can see how the light really gives that Tiger Eye feel. I'm not sure what you would call that kind of, maybe chrome or something, like chrome appearance. That's what makes Tiger Eye so desirable. And so I was thinking I wanted to do another band up top here, but considering how close we're already at to the top, I'm just gonna skip that, especially since, you know, the stone's not gonna go anywhere. So what I'm gonna do is just finish up by wrapping all the way up here until the point where it's like in the middle, and then same thing on this side, and then that will be where we get to the next step. So let me just wrap these real quick. The name of that song is Party Freaks. So freaks is a big theme for Egyptian lover. The freaks and the geeks. And if you like electronic old school music, I really recommend checking out the Egyptian Lover. He's got like a whole discography that's just fire. If you saw that show Snowfall, it's a pretty good fictional story about the beginning of the crack epidemic. They use a lot of Egyptian Lover for the playlist for that show. It's pretty good. That's where I discovered how I discovered that music. Okay, so you see how it's kind of they've met each other. I just want to make sure I get the framework right, as good as can. All right, so it's not rolling up here or rolling up there. And then next, what I'm going to do is with this 24 gauge wire, I'm going to wrap it underneath both of the 20 gauge wires. So it kind of ties them in together. And then my intention will be to do the same thing with the other 24 gauge wire. So I'll flip it around, grab the wire, tuck it through. Alright. There's a little bit of gap right there, but it's totally fine. Especially since I'm going to end up twisting and that will actually tighten itself in a little bit. But it's fine because the stone is 100% secure and it's not going anywhere. And that's always going to be priority one when wire wrapping. So as I said, I definitely used a lot more wire than was necessary, but I've been on a streak lately where just cutting it close, no pun intended, of running out of wire before I can actually finish the wrap. And that's truly one of the most sad experiences when wire wrapping, is not having enough of the resource, especially when it's a really good wrap. So as you can see, I didn't really explain it, but what I did is With the flat part of my pliers here, I pinch down in order to create that L shape. And then from there, I pinched down on the foot of the L and started rolling around the finger of the pliers. And I generally like to do at least a double roll. And this one, it looks like there's going to be enough for me to go make a third lap around. And then you always want to make sure that the that little L pinch is at the bottom there. So that way it can just get pinched down with the very tip of the pliers. And then carefully carefully tuck that in. And then we're gonna actually twist it so that the loops, it makes sense this way to have it like that as opposed to having the hole facing that way. Because the lace will go through this way, and that way it will just hang nice and pretty. And then, so from here, I'm gonna take both of the 24 gauge wires and just wrap like a little scarf around the neck. And I'm gonna take the other 20 gauge wire, roll that up so that the 24 gauge wires are rolling underneath. And I will definitely not be using like the whole rest of this strand. In fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and clip both of those off now. Looking nice. And then same thing, just pinch the tips and curl them. Curl them both so they're tucked under. And so that they're not poking out. So you can see if you look in there, like, yeah, the wires, the tips, they're in there, but they're tucked away. Nice and safe. And then to finish, and I also won't need that much wire either. So clip that. And then what I like to do for my style of finish is kind of the Jin's Treasure signature is to just curl a loop right there. And then with the flat part, pinch down and then just continue spiraling in control. This is a big stone, bigger than I normally work with, so I like to have bigger spiral as well to finish. All right, and that's how you do that. Beautiful.